Hey everybody, this is Jungle Jenna, and I'm back with another video. I know in my last video I said that I wasn't going to really be making a whole lot of videos until the movie came out, but I have had some ideas for videos that I can make, and I'm going to be starting a series where I'm going to be discussing Reylo-Esque romances that I find in other places, whether that's in book format or if it's in a TV show or a movie. So I just want to talk about like Reylo-Esque romances, and I also want to have a series where I talk about Star Wars romances. So I have read a couple of Star Wars novels that do feature a romance, and I have things that I want to say that pertain to Reylo in relation to those books. The first Star Wars book that I read was Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which features a love story with two people on opposite sides of the war. So it's kind of Reylo-esque in a way, and there are just some interesting things that happen that I would definitely like to talk about in a future video. And then the second book that I read was the Star Wars Legends Darth Revan book. So it doesn't necessarily... Originally, like, I bought the book because I thought it was going to be focusing on Revan and Bastila's relationship and how they fell in love, but it really takes place after they have already gotten together, and Revan ends up leaving because he senses something he senses a danger in the Force, and so he goes to try to kind of rediscover his memories after they had been wiped away. But there is like romance in the book, and so I wanted to talk about not only how Darth Revan's character was handled, having been both on the light and the dark side, but how how they handled the relationship between Revan and Bastila. So that's going to be for a separate video. For this one, I'm going to be talking about kind of like the enemies to lovers trope and antagonistic romances, and a couple of romances that I've discovered either on my own or through a friend. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And first off, I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt, my Reylo shirt. It says, "Let the past die, kill it." So it doesn't say the whole quote. It just has Rey and Kylo Ren on the front with part of the quote. But last night, the town that I live in, there's a movie theater that plays old movies. So the tickets are really cheap, and it's like kind of this really cool old-fashioned theater, and they're doing Star Wars month this month. So they're playing the original trilogy, and so last night I went to go see A New Hope. And that's the first time that I've seen that in a couple of years. I watched it after not seeing it for a really long time, not since I was a kid, a couple of years ago after The Force Awakens first came out. And it probably wasn't my favorite out of the original trilogy, but I actually really liked it. I really enjoyed it last night, being able to see it on the big screen and kind of knowing more about the plot and stuff, and being familiar with like the plot points and everything. So I actually really enjoyed it, and next weekend they're going to be playing The Empire Strikes Back, and then after that The Return of the Jedi. So my mom has been going with me, and she's been kind of rediscovering Star Wars too after not watching these movies since she was a kid. So I'm really excited for Empire Strikes Back. It was so much fun though, because like they had people dressed up as stormtroopers, so I got pictures taken with stormtroopers, and everyone was like super into the movie. Like they were clapping, they cheered when the Death Star exploded. Everyone was like whooping and hollering when the crawl, the opening crawl, showed up and stuff, and then when it ended, everyone clapped, and it was so much fun. So I'm way excited to have that experience again this coming weekend. But without further ado, I'd like to get into the first book that I read. So some of these are romance novels, so if you're not into romance novels, like, I completely understand, but these are some like really kind of high quality romance novels that I've really enjoyed. And the first book is 7 Nights in a Rogue's Bed by Anna Campbell. So it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I read this shortly after The Force Awakens came out for the first time, and I just remember thinking, like, this is a total Reylo romance. Like, even the hero, his mother is from Spain and his father is English, so he has like really kind of wild black hair, and he has a large nose, and he has like a scar that goes across his face. So physically he resembles Kylo Ren. And this is kind of so basically this book is about a man named Jonas Merrick, who is basically a bastard. So he his mother was like kind of treated as a whore, and his father, like, even though like he tried to marry her, it was never recognized within the church. So Jonas Merrick was considered a bastard. And so he has basically focused on trying to build his reputation through his actions and through his business and through making a lot of money and stuff. And kind of other people sort of regard him as this beast because he's kind of ruthless and, and so and then also like women don't necessarily find him attractive. They kind of mock his appearance and everything. So he's got kind of like issues with his self-image and everything. But he ends up, he has this feud with his cousin, and I can't remember his name. I think his name's like William or something. And they've had like this lifelong feud. And so to try to get back at William, he basically he blackmails his wife into having like this week-long sex fest with him. And instead of the sister going, or instead of Roberta, the wife, going, she ends up persuading her sister, Sydney, to go in her stead. And so Sydney goes to try to stand up for her sister and to try to put Jonas in his place. And so she arrives at his, like, he lives in this, like, he has several houses, but he, like, has this castle by the seaside, and it's like this very gothic setting, and it's very like dramatic and romantic. But she ends up arriving to his castle one night in the rain, and he is like completely startled to actually find that it's Sydney instead of Roberta. So, and he's actually very attracted to Sydney, but it kind of starts this very antagonistic-y, like push and pull, like enemies to lovers thing. It's really fun to read because Jonas is Jonas is kind of like Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, where, he kind of is sassy and has all of these quippy one-liners and is sort of kind of cocky and arrogant, and with Rey, where he gives her like that solo smirk and he winks at her. So there are definitely there's definitely like a Kylo Ren-esque vibe to him, and he also he's kind of like this tortured soul and has he's very emotional, so that's another way that he's like Kylo Ren. But he's really funny, and he loves to tease Sydney and stuff, and there is a lot of sex in the book, but I will say that it's one of the few romance novels that I've read where I feel like the emotional aspect of the story is very well integrated into like the sexual part of it. So each sex scene like serves a purpose to further the emotional intimacy between these two characters. And there comes a point in the story where there is a lot of angst, so it is very angsty. And the first time I read it, it hurt my heart. Like, my heart was just like, I felt like it was being ripped out of my chest because it was so hard to read at certain points. But it's called, once again, it's called 7 Nights in a Rogue's Bed, and that is the front cover, and it's by Anna Campbell. The writing is super good, and it definitely has like a Kylo Ren-esque Reylo vibe to it. So I actually listened to it on audiobook the second time, just because I'm visually impaired, so I just wanted to be able to listen to it. And at first I wasn't really totally fond of the guy who was doing the audiobook, reading, but I ended up really getting into it, and regardless of that, I really enjoyed the story, and I was so happy that I was able to read it again. It's one of those books that's going to be like a reread for me, like every couple of years. And I haven't read this book yet, but I actually found it. It was recommended on Tumblr as, by, I can't remember who it was, but because it was a couple of years ago. But they said that it was basically a Reylo-Esque romance. It's enemies to lovers. It's kind of like a classic romance novel, but it's called A Kingdom of Dreams by Judith McNaught. So I will definitely be kind of discussing this book in a different video, kind of as I get further into these enemies to lovers stories. But I've been wanting to read this one for a couple of years now, and it's been on my shelf, and I read the first couple of pages, and it was actually really funny and really well written, so I'm excited to read that one. But one that I'm currently reading is actually considered a very classic romance novel. It came out in 1996, and it's called Lord of Scoundrels by Loretta Chase, and it is like the ultimate enemies to lovers, antagonistic-y romance. So I haven't finished it, so I can't tell you exactly like what happens in the story and stuff, but the gist of it is that this, it's the main male character is very Kylo Ren. Like he has, like it talks about his big nose, because he's half Italian, half English, and it talks about his super big nose, and they kind of, in his black hair and his black eyes, and he's got kind of like wavy curly black hair, and they kind of they refer to him as ugly. Like they often like say that his nose kind of is a symbol of his ugliness, and he's often referred to in the book as like Beelzebub or Satan, or that he's evil and stuff because of how monstrous he is on the outside, and so I actually like felt kind of bad for him, because I'm like, okay, like big noses can be really sexy, like with Kylo Ren's character, and so okay, like sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but anyway, it's basically about it kind of starts off with this prologue, and so just as a warning, I will be kind of getting into spoilers, but in the prologue, it talks about how his father married this Florentine woman who, they had like this really disastrous marriage, and the main character, his first name is Sebastian, but he's called Dane. He's often referred to as Dane in the book. So Dane, as a child, kind of grew up with these parents who just couldn't get along, and there was a lot of unhappiness in the home, even though he was born into wealth, and he was very isolated and alone, and people made fun of his appearance. They thought he was ugly because he was like this scrawny, gangly little thing with a huge nose, and he would like look through picture books that his mother had bought him, and all of the villains and the evil witches and stuff in these storybooks were the only ones that looked like him. So he kind of like began to see himself as being evil and a monster. And when he went to school, he was bullied, and he eventually got to the point where he kind of ended up becoming like the ringleader of the bullies, and so he, like, it kind of just goes, there's a lot more to his backstory, but it really goes into, like, why he becomes the person that he becomes later on in the story. And so when the story does officially begin, an English woman named Jessica Trent she goes to Paris to save her brother from financial ruin, because Bertie, her brother, is spending so much time with this guy, Dane. And he's kind of considered the Lord of Scoundrels, like he's the scoundrel of all scoundrels. And when they first meet each other, like there's kind of this instant attraction, but their banter is amazing. It is so well written. It is like a very smart historical romance. It is very smartly written. And but there is so much tension between these two characters, and a whole bunch of outrageous things happen in this book. Like, I'm only halfway through it, and so far it's like completely outrageous. But yeah, I totally recommend that book, and I'll definitely give you an update as to like how I enjoyed that book, you know, kind of in future videos. And so that kind of ends the books that I've been reading so far that have enemies to lovers, Reylo-esque vibes to them. The next two recommendations that I have are actually TV shows that my friend Emily recommended to me. And I'll tell you a little bit about Emily. I actually met her through my channel. She's been following my channel for a while. And in my Abducted in Plain Sight review, which I'm not even really sure at this point why I posted it on my Reylo channel, but I'm really glad I did because I wouldn't have met her if I hadn't. But I mentioned in that review that I am now living in Utah, and I live in the hometown, or I live in the town that she grew up in. So she doesn't live here all the time, but she does come periodically to visit, and so we've hung out like 3 times over the last 2 months or so, and she's really introduced me to a lot of really good romances that I'm excited to talk a little. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it because she really wants to make videos on both of these TV shows, and so when she does make those videos, like, I will totally, you know, put a link in the description box for you to go check out her analysis and everything. But we've also talked about doing a video where we discuss these TV shows and how they relate to Reylo and everything. But the 2 TV shows that she's introduced me to are Vampire Diaries and Boys Over Flowers. So Vampire Diaries, I'm only 1 season into, and there are like 8 seasons. So it's taken me a little bit longer to get through this particular series, but it does include an antagonistic enemies to lovers romance, and features like a villain being redeemed and everything. So I hope that that's not a spoiler, but I won't tell you any more than that. But then the other one, Boys Over Flowers, there is a Korean drama that is an adaptation of the show that I have watched. So I'm not talking about the Korean drama. I'm talking about the original Japanese anime that came out in the 90s. And I'll actually I ordered the entire, like, you know, the entire show on DVD from eBay. So I'm just waiting for that to come in the mail. But if you are interested in watching the Japanese anime, I'll put a link down in the description box too. It's on cartooncrazy.net. So if you go to cartooncrazy.net and you search for Boys Over Flowers, then you'll end up finding it. And there are 51 episodes, and it's so good. I have watched the entire thing already, and I'm actually halfway through watching it for my second time, and I am on a complete high from that show. And it features like one of the best, if not like the top 3 antagonistic enemies to lovers romances, and it has total Reylo vibes. But it's a little bit more lighthearted than Reylo. It's a little bit more of like a romantic comedy with some drama. But that's as much as I'm going to say. But I will say one last thing. The male character, the main male character in Boys Over Flowers, whose name is Tsukasa, he is like really hot for an anime character. Like, if he was an actual real person, he would be so sexy. So that is a plus, is that you get like hot anime characters, which is like really weird to say. I never thought I would be attracted to like a cartoon. So yeah, I don't know. I'm saying too much. I should just stop talking now. So anyway, I definitely would like to make a discussion video with Emily about Boys Over Flowers. So, the next time that I see her, we could potentially do something like that, and we could maybe do a live stream or something. So I'll just have to talk to her to see like what she wants to do. But yeah, we've already talked about Boys Over Flowers we've had a couple conversations about it, and there are so many Reylo parallels, and there's so much good stuff in it. Like, even though it's an older anime, and some people may find the drawing style to be outdated, like, I personally loved the animation, and I really got into it. So yeah, thank you so much. Giving a shout out to Emily for introducing me to those two shows, and hopefully she'll be able to join me in my next discussion in one of my future videos. So that's all that I pretty much have for today. I'm going to continue to read and scour the internet for antagonistic romances so that I can continue to make these videos. Definitely tell me what you think below in the description box, and if you're interested in checking out any one of those shows or books, definitely do so. I highly recommend that you do. So, and if you have read it or seen it already, then definitely let me know what you think. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. Bye.